Welcome back to Bread and Butter, where we are serving up basics for Hearthstone improvement. This is episode 111, and we go deeper into the Emerald Dream. Today, as always, I have my co-host Pilot. Pilot, how are you tonight?
Doing well.
And again, for the second week in a row, to finish off talking about the cards, we have our friend who's really good at Hearthstone, WorldEight. WorldEight, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back.
So today we're going to be talking about new cards. We're going to finish up the last 5 classes. There's also a balance patch we'll touch on. WorldEight, what have you been doing inside of Hearthstone in preparation for this new rotation?
So I don't know. I just kind of got a little tired of standard. So when I do, I go back to wilds because wilds kind of like is fun, especially because in standard I just kept seeing like these slow, grindy like Terran decks all over the place, and like it was one night I was playing on my iPad and I literally fell asleep in a game. I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with standard for a little bit. And so I went to wild, and because I haven't pushed legend in wild in like 2-3 months, and I picked up actually hand buff hunter in wild, which is kind of cool too. It's like everything in wild is kind of like a whole nother level up. So in standard you get your pair of big zerglings on 2-3, and in wild it's just that much more consistent, and they're bigger because you get to run the original wolf pinger, which you can also draw with like a 2 mana, and it gives it +4/+4, and then you can reserve spot it, and all of a sudden you're dropping this huge little bunny, a pair of bunnies. So that was I spent a bit of time in wild. There's also a pretty cool priest deck, a Protoss priest aggro deck with like Crab Rider and Bless and stuff like that I had a lot of fun with. So got to legend in wild and climbed a bit there. So it was fun to get a break from standard just because it's been feeling kind of samey.
How about yourself, Pilot? What have you been doing?
Yeah, I've just been kind of cruising lately. Haven't played a ton, probably because after we talked last week, I had lost my top 8 match for CCLS. Just had some awful luck my way, some good luck their way. Couldn't quite overcome it. So I haven't felt the need to practice standard decks. Been trying to clear quests, and my quests keep telling me to play Shaman, which means I have normally been trying to play at night before Tito and I play a duos, and we're like, yeah, let's play duos in like 25 minutes. I'm like, perfect. I got in one game because I've queued into Shaman control mirrors constantly. So haven't played a ton of standard. So when I do that, normally I dig into Battlegrounds. Have been actually enjoying Anomalies a decent bit this time around. They have some interesting ones. I had the other day the one where you start with 1 gold, minions cost 1 gold but sell for 0, and upgrading the tavern costs 2 less, for all the levels. And that one is weird. It hurt my head. I messed up like turn 4 or 5 because I'm like, oh, I have a better minion in shop. I'll sell this one and buy that thing. And then I sold it and I didn't have any gold. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't do that. So it's a very, very interesting anomaly. Got the one that gives you golden minion in shop a couple times. But they're fun. I forget what we had the other night, Tito. Maybe you'll remember, but there were shenanigans abound.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what it was. I was just thinking that while you were talking. It was
double hero power.
It was the first double hero power. So we did it twice.
Yeah, you got to choose the second hero power, and there were quite the pairs of teammates because there was a nameless one in somebody. There was a bunch of 0-cost hero powers. There was Chokeall. Everyone just went full greed, and it got goofy quick.
Is that the one we rolled on 9 though? Like there was one. One. Oh, which was the one we rolled on 9? Like, what do we have? I remember
because a couple weeks ago. I don't remember, but we steamrolled a lobby.
That was like disgusting. Sunday. That was like Sunday or Monday.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, fair. So for me, I haven't played a ton, mostly because I've been streaming a little less, not necessarily, less days, but also less hours on those days because getting up earlier. I slept till this is a little bit outside of Hearthstone, but I slept until 6:30 instead of 5:30 the other day, and I got to work at 7:30 because I have some flexibleness with when I can get in and when I leave and whatnot. But it felt like I slept in. It was weird, and I was still there before other people, and I was like, "Oh, this is good." I someday may decide to figure out what it feels like to get 8 hours of sleep a night again and properly hydrate and all that stuff. But today is not that day. But I have been enjoying. I know a lot of people probably don't like the deck, but I've been enjoying Zerg Death Knight. It's been fun. It's a weird deck. It's just it's yes, it's harder to win if you don't draw your um infestors, and it's I don't know. It's just I've had a lot of fun with it. I haven't hit the climb yet. I like to try to hit the climb, complete the climb to legend before the set switches over. If it's like in the middle of the month or later, but I don't think I'm going to get there this month. Um, Good news is tomorrow. So tonight, okay, tonight is Wednesday, March 12th. It's about 10:20 p.m. on the East Coast. Like I said, I get up early to go to work. Uh, WorldEight has lots to talk about tonight, so I'm feeling this is not going to be a short episode, which is fine. But I'm also going to try to possibly edit this tonight. I don't know if I will or not. If I can get it out before, great. If not, this will be old news. But I will be theory crafting tomorrow on the 13th, so we'll talk about that next week. We're going to have a few special guests. Pilot's going to join us for, I think, quite a bit of it. And then
Yeah.
at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Just a Guy will join me for a little while. And, he'll bring his bears, I think. And then at 10 o'clock, we'll have WorldEight join us for a little while and actually bring maybe good Hearthstone play into the match. So, and it was funny because I put together a little advertisement for it, and I had Pilot as the co-host of Bread and Butter, and then I had Just a Guy as um, the his whole shtick of creator, the world's foremost Hearthstone creator, and then I had WorldEight as our friend who actually knows how to play Hearthstone. And then I was like, Pilot, I don't mean that as in you're not able to play Hearthstone. I just meant that as it was kind of funny. He's like, oh, wait a second.
It's fine. We all understand. It's okay.
But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, and we'll be giving away bundles. So if I get this out, you're hearing this, make sure you tune in to Tito Santana HS. I'll plug that again at the end. But Pilot, what have you been doing outside the game?
Kind of trying to just get my way to spring break. We're on spring break next week. So 2 more school days. We can do it. We can make it. So have that. We had our large group adjudicated event with our high school groups last Friday, where both groups performed pretty well. Band didn't quite play as well as we had during the week. So we got an excellent, the second highest rating rather than the top rating we were going for, but still so much improvement from where we were, especially with the group where over half of them are freshmen or younger. So it's been a lot of learning curves through the year. So now I kind of get to reset and do some different stuff for the spring. So we're got through that. Saturday, last Friday, the new Disney Lorcana set came out. Saturday, I was able to pick up some packs and ended up finally opening an Enchanted, which is like their alternate art chase cards. Opened up what's sitting at like the third best chase card of the set so far. So that was a fun surprise, especially because I had heard rumors that like if you got a box, the pack with that card was in a certain spot in the box, and it was flip-flop from what I was told. So I'm like, oh, I was not ready for this card. I about dropped it because I was that surprised. So I got a really, really awesome Bell Enchanted. And then other than that, just trying to find some time to chill and catch up on some sleep. Started Chrono Trigger to play along with Squelch here the end of this month. Missed the last couple of games, so trying to join back in with them now that I have some time again.
How about yourself, WorldEight? What have you been doing outside the game?
I had actually a pretty interesting weekend. So my wife and I won a raffle at the school fundraiser to go to a sporting clay range. So if you don't know what sporting clays are, they basically you have a shotgun and you're shooting at these clay discs. They also call them pigeons that are thrown by a machine over a field. They're supposed to resemble birds, deer, rabbits, that kind of thing. And it's pretty interesting because it's kind of like golf, but with shotguns. And we've been doing like trap and sporting clay shooting for a number of years. My wife's, and this is all just very recreational. We take our guns very, very seriously. Um, 'cause anyway, we went to this. What we had won with the ticket was actually a training session with pretty much the Tiger Woods of sporting clays shooting. He is, he was like best in the country for like every event when he was in his mid-20s, and he's remained like one of the best in the country for the last like 10 years or something. So absolutely incredible experience. He does trainings all the time. He was a really good instructor. We're both very novice. We're batting 500 where he's batting like 9.999. like if he misses one, it's a really bad day for him. And so it's just really incredible to get instruction from someone on that level who is also like trying to teach. We're not beginners, but we're just on a we shoot less. I've shot less in my whole life than he shoots in a month. And it's just a fascinating experience, and I learned a lot. I also got a lot out of interacting with someone who is the best in the country at something, because he trains other people that are like the top 50. Like they come to him to take these lessons. So for me, it kind of actually extended a little bit into Hearthstone, where I feel like I've hit a cap on like my skill, where I can't break a certain point. And I just know I'm like one of those guys that would have to go to like the very best, to be honest, to like bring my game to the next level, and if I could. So, but anyway, really, really cool experience. My wife and I are pretty sold on like trying to make this more of a regular thing, because again, it's kind of like golf. It's just like a recreational thing to do. And so looking forward to maybe doing more of that.
We also here at Bread and Butter, we interviewed the best player in the world a little while ago, Pocket Train. So you can always go back into our archives and listen to that, and maybe that'll help you get over your plateau. But I think I've already pretty much talked about most of what I did. I don't even remember what I talked about. I know I talked about some out of Hearthstone stuff. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of travel back and forth to New Hampshire. I don't remember when we recorded on what day last week? Thursday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday I traveled back and forth to New Hampshire to watch my son play in a orchestra concert. So, and then drove back the same night. So that's the things you got to do when you have to live away from your family for work. But work's been fine. I enjoy it. I'm learning more and more. It's a lot of lot to learn, but it's very interesting, and I think going to be very rewarding. And I couldn't be happier. But that's not what you're here to hear about, at least not for too long. We have a lot to talk about. First off, there's a patch coming next week, and we're going to be getting the pre what do they call it? The brawl, the pre brawl, um, something like that. But you get to play with the new cards. So if you buy bundles, you get to open those bundles and you can play with those new cards in the brawl, and you can win packs and whatnot. Um, Last time around, so this is I'm interested to find the level of engagement this time around, because it was an awesome event last time. I think it was almost universally well received, or at least as universally as something happens in Hearthstone. But we all were sitting on stacks of arena tickets that we weren't using, right? Or a lot of us were. Now, how many tickets do we have? I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure we got a couple on the reward track or something, but this time around it's going to cost gold. It's going to cost or real money, however you want to do it. So just something to keep in mind. It's not going to be as free flowing as it was last time. So I'm interested to see what the level of engagement will be. I'm assuming, are you both of you excited for that event? So
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I unfortunately have vacation plans for next week, which I'm really pretty bummed about. But for the Hearthstone time that I get to play, I'm going to be really torn. between playing the weird standard week where there's buffs and nerfs and everything's crazy, and the brawl, because I really liked the brawl last time.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it. I really liked it last time. I thought that they did a very elegant solution this time to trying to make it not just be just standard early, to where for the last one they did it to where is only that year, so they dropped all the sets that are now going to rotate. Obviously we don't kind of have that now, so they're just doing current core set. So not new core for what we're going to have at expansion release, but what we currently have: event set, Great Dark Beyond, and Great Dark Beyond is without StarCraft. No StarCraft mini set, and then the new set. So that's definitely going to open up a lot of interesting deck building, and a lot of wiggle room to play around with new cards without getting oppressed by older stuff, like when we had Mech Warrior kind of just run rampant last time. I am on spring break next week, so I'm very much looking forward to having a lot more time to play than the last pre-release event, but I am interested to see where engagement is at, not just because of the tavern ticket stuff, but because a lot of people really enjoy the Franken meta with the great unnerfing right before, and those are going to overlap for the entire week. So I'm interested to see how much that kind of pulls people in both directions.
You might have to sell your enchanted card to pay for all the runs you might do.
I've got a lot of gold. I'm good.
But yeah, so I'm very excited, and it looks like. So let's talk about the. We're not going to go through the patch notes. Other shows do that, and if we didn't have anything else to do, we would probably talk about it. But there's so much to talk about. The made an effort to, I think, change the meta so that way a lot of the stronger decks right now are not going to overwhelm the Emerald Dream, because we've talked about it before that it feels like the Emerald Dream power level is coming down, and if the sets the previous year's set don't come down with it, then it'll get kind of squashed out, kind of like Starships felt at the beginning of the Dark Beyond. It felt like, well, we're not doing Starships. Little did we know, StarCraft was going to bring Starships back in a very big way. But so they made a lot of nerfs to cards like the Zerg cards and a lot of the mini set cards, as well as some outliers. It was a really long list, and they were also doing, like Pilot said, unnerfing, like Reno's going back from 10 to 8, Yogg's going from 10 to 9. But my favorite right now, even though I play these cards and I like playing these cards, so I'm a hypocrite, but Ziliax Virus Module is losing Reborn, and Hydration Station is going from 8 to 10. I could not be happier about those, because those are some of the most frustrating things, especially combined together. So that is kind of like my takeaway for these notes. I'm looking forward to the fact that they're bringing the power level hopefully down, so that way the Emerald cards can shine and we can kind of build up from there. Like, I don't care about power creep because that's what makes cards interesting. But if you keep going up and up, it's kind of like the Marvel movies, right? Like you go up and up and up, and then finally you get to Endgame, and you have the whole big thing that ends. Then you have to kind of bring it back down and reset and start building something else new up, right? So that's kind of what I feel like this. I hope that's what happens. I know WorldEight has a lot to say. So Pilot, why don't we start with you? What are your thoughts on the patch?
Yeah, I think a lot of them make sense. Most of them are a number here or a number there. So shave, an attack off something, shave a health off of something. But I'm more interested in some of the bigger changes, especially the cards that we haven't seen as much recently, that they must feel pretty strongly are going to come back stronger. So like the hand buff paladin weapon, Painter's Virtue, is losing lifesteal. Holy Glow Sticks, the lifesteal DF4 costs 1 if you've cast a holy spell this turn. That can now only target minions. So you cannot Lanessa double, or quadruple Holy Glow Stick somebody's face, which was a big part of that paladin deck. Zarimi has now played dragons instead of summons. What?
That was a theme too. It seemed like in the patches, like a lot of a
Yes.
decent amount of things were no longer targeting enemies. They switched to targeting enemy minions.
Yeah, so some things there, and then they just absolutely smacked down the power level on all the Terran stuff, all the starship stuff, because it was so much better and stronger than all the starships that we had before. It's not like they took the current starships that we had from the beginning and just made those, gave those support pieces. It is like two completely different ideas. And they just, did a lot of nerfs across those. Most of them, I think, fairly warranted. I think that they're still going to be fine, but they're not going to be, constantly backbreaking. I think the one that I question the most might be Gorgon Zormu. Yes, it's a good card, but I don't know. It's strong. It's still going to be strong, I think, but I don't having just kind of that neutral. Here's something to fill your curve at three mana for a board in a box later. Seemed okay to me, but maybe they're trying to open up some room for other stuff.
I think they're just, in my opinion on that one, I think they're just trying to make it seem less. Because, I think it was fine. The power level of it was fine, but they just, let's see some different things. Although that kind of helps see new cards, right? Because you get the randomness of them, but I can understand it. WorldEight, what are your thoughts on the patch?
Well, I'll start with the wild stuff first. Because I think it's going to be interesting to go from if you play it all next week, the power level is going to be crazy high. We're seeing a lot of cards coming back that were super strong. And I think that, we've got some really like Sludge Warlock back in full force, Dragon, Druid back in full force with a completely unnerved Shattered Reflection that can bring, copy an ENR. Sith Mage is going to be full force. Like Showdown Paladin tier S deck also coming back. So we've got, Nature Shaman. So we're going to have this really, really strong week. So it's going to be, I think it might be a little bit of whiplash when the expansion launches, to being like, oh, well, the Emerald Dream is on a different level. So I'm really happy for a lot of these wild changes. Sanitized change is kind of gross, for wild, but that's another story. In terms of standard, I actually think they might not have gone far enough. I know this is kind of like a hot take, but they said, oh, we're going to do all these big nerfs. And so I went through all like the tiered decks, and I was like, well, what does it look like if you need to nerf all of these? Like, what do the decks look like with pieces missing? And honestly, I think they're still going to have a Great Dark Beyond challenge, going into the set. Like, specifically, Zerg DK got, destroyed. So like we can put that down, and I'm not really sold on the Death Knight set going into Emerald Dream. So we might not be seeing Arthas for a while. It's not clear to me what that would look like. But for something like Discover Hunter, it got a very small nudge, and that deck was going in 30 out of 30 going into the new set, and as a strong deck. It got nudged by Kerrigan going up 1 mana, and then the alien encounters got a slight health nerf, but neither of those were really like the big power plays. Like, they were both good, but it's not like double sea giants on 3. Like, that's like a whole nother level than Emerald Dream is like ready to handle. Right. Like, it's those huge power spikes that the deck can have, or like a Hydralisk turn on 5 for like 15 damage. Just seems a lot higher than honestly a lot of the Emerald Dream cards. So I think that we can still see we're gonna still see a lot of the same decks. I'm not gonna lie. Terran Shaman got hit, but it's still, I think its package is probably stronger than most of what we're seeing from Emerald Dream. So I think a lot of these cards or other related cards, they try to do a small nudge now. But honestly, I think we're still going to see a lot of the old decks. I think they actually did a pretty good job with Bob in particular. If they wanted with a recruit a minion, like just get a copy. Ball will still be okay-ish, but it's not going to be an easy way to get rid of everything. And um, I think the other big problem one is Ceaseless, being essentially a zero mana wipe the board a lot of times later on. And so, and I'll talk about the crystal in a second too. But in a game without armor, what we might see a lot of is you put Ceaseless down and then your two big minions, because you're also running Ysera or something, and like that's how you end the game. Like Ceaseless plus two big minions, and then they just, if they can't recover, then that's a finisher. The defense crystal is kind of a different story because mostly the Demon Hunter package can basically get back dozens of defense crystals if you build the deck right. Because of their resurrect two copies of something demon for anything that's four or less, and then you can resurrect that demon with the other demon. So you can get like 100 plus armor as a Demon Hunter. I don't know what you do with that, but it's gonna be really annoying to face. And so I'm not sure. I just don't know if it's honestly if it was enough to take the power level down. I think something like Zarimi, it's still going to be really good. It's much more, it's subtle, but it's really hard to play 8 dragons. A lot of those dragons were actually being summoned. And something like Halo is like a really perfect nudge. Like it's still a very strong card, but it's not like backbreakingly strong early on. So in terms of like a balance change, I think these are all great numbers changes. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think that all of the decks are still going to be like, all the Emerald Dream cards are still a lot weaker than the decks that we're going into rotation with.
That I agree with everything you said, but I'm kind of okay with them not going so overboard that all the cards that we have aren't worth playing. Like, so it's a tough balance. It's really hard to do, and I think that we have found a good cadence for balance changes. They're not panicking, but they're also not like waiting too long either. I feel like when the balance changes are coming, and you have enough time to let the meta develop and adjust. So I'm hoping you're wrong a little bit as far as like I don't mind if we still see a lot of the old decks as long as there are the ability for the new decks to shine is there too. So it'll be interesting if that actually can happen or not. But they'll get it right at some point. So I'm looking forward to it. But we have 5 new classes to talk about. So let's go ahead and talk about them. Kyle's cats are very excited about the new set. We can tell. Um, but first off, we'll start with Mage. Mage is one of the imbued classes, and this one is Blessing of the Wisp. Gives your hero power 2 mana. Is it to become 2 mana hero power? Summon 1 Wisp. Deal 1 damage randomly split amongst all enemies. So I thought when I first read this, I thought it was every time you did this, you'd get a bigger wisp. But no, you just get more 1/1 wisps. And there's some interactivity with them. If you have minions that you can eat wisps for cards, you can if one of their legendaries is if you it's Asina, Asina. It's an 8 mana 6/8 undead battle cry. If 20 friendly minions have died this game, deal 20 damage split amongst all enemies. Which, if you have a clear board, great, and all that. I don't know how good that card is, but it's going along with the fact that you have a lot of these wisps that are going to die. I don't know. This feels like it's either going to be really strong or really a real mess. Uh, the location's interesting, which is spend all your mana, cast a random spell that costs that much. Um, it looks fun. I like Ku- the Ku- why do they make all these so hard to say? Kunonzu, which is a 3 mana 3/4 battle cry. Discover a spell. Choose to either keep it or put it on top of your opponent's deck. So if you get like some real spell that's really not going to help you, or really just kind of slow down your opponent, That's really it could be interesting. I like the concept of that card, but I don't know how much I buy this wisp thing. WorldEight, what are your thoughts on the mage package here?
I think I'm okay, on it. I think, the big appeal is Asina, right? Like 20 damage, it's a big number to have on a card. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit before, where it's like this plus ceaseless. Like this card doesn't work that effectively unless you have a clear board, and then all of a sudden it looks a lot more appealing to do this on like 10 and click your hero power, which then like so you go ceaseless, like Asina, click hero power. Ideally that does 30. So it's nice to have like this we're gonna win the game somehow, or that's the flashy thing to do. I think a lot of people are gonna get really tripped up by having so many wisps on board. Like it's not really, it's kind of easy to like board lock yourself. I don't think a lot of people realize that, especially Bob. Like Bob's still not going anywhere. Like you could still freeze their board of wisps and then they have to pass a turn. So I think they did a really interesting way of imbuing it. Like they get 10 out of 10 for creativity here. And the flavor is really good. I think the power level's probably okay-ish. And I mostly say that because we've seen a lot of minions in this set in particular. I feel like we've seen a lot of like big minions or cards that give armor or cards that'll heal a lot. So if you want to kill someone from hand, you're going to have to do a lot more work than just slam Messina down. I do want to give a shout out to Forbidden Shrine, which is the location. I kind of wrote it off, and I think a lot of people thought it was a meme. But I took time to look at all the spell pools, and you have to look at specifically 7-cost spells are all bangers. And it's weird because you're like, oh, what about like 10-cost spells and things like that? But like 7-cost is like Flame Strike. It's the new legendary spell. It's the Crafter's Aura from Paladin. They're all really good. Like the only one that you really don't want to see is Repackage. But that's like one out of like, I don't know, 10 or something like that. Like they're all pretty solid. And you can click this 3 times for 3, like for 1 mana. I think this could actually see some good play. So in terms of imbue, I think it's really, really clever. But and I think people will like to play it, but I do think actually the wisp might be more annoying than people originally anticipate.
I don't know why you're saying you don't want repackage. That seems perfect to give your opponent a handful of wisps and clear your board. And now you're no longer board locked with wisps. That sounds like a
It's
win-win for
true.
me. How about yourself, Pilot? What are you thinking about the mages?
Um, yeah, the Wisp mage is 100% like my line of deck to try early on in the expansion. I'm always a sucker for token decks. So I'm asking and wondering if it's too late to petition to put Frozen Touch in the core set. Because that would make that a top deck very quickly, I think, with all the tokens. But alas. Yeah, excited to try that. Don't have too much other to add other than I think the 3-mana legendary, Konzu or however it's said. I think that will be a solid, I don't want to call it a deck filler, but kind of that 28 to 30 card slot while we're especially in a smaller pool. Think of how often we played things like Venomous Scorpid and things like that. And yes, it's a legendary, so it's a little bit different, but I think it's something that we still play. And then you also have the option of, yes, I really want this, or oh, I don't like any of these. Now I'm going to mess up my opponent's draw next turn and give them nothing to do. So that'll probably see a decent bit of play, especially in anything slower for Mage, at least early on in the year, and then probably fade out as we go.
You want to bring us into Warlock?
Yeah. So Warlock is our one class that kind of has the Dark Gift payoffs. when they talked about the mechanics, they had kind of teased and said that dark gifts weren't going to be something that you necessarily build a deck around. And then kind of got word that there might be one class that is it, and it's Warlock. Somewhat unsurprising. So we have some death rattles with discover a death rattle with a dark gift. Have a 5 mana 4/6 taunt battle cry, reduce the cost of minions in your hand with dark gifts by 2. And it all kind of builds up to one of the legendaries, Wallow the Wretched. While this is in your hand or deck, it gains a copy of every dark gift given to your minions. That is a 7 mana 6/6. So any dark gifts that you get throughout the game, this will have when you play it, whether it's in your hand or deck. That can get a lot of stuff really quickly. Remember, there's charge in those dark gifts. There's, I don't think that it can't get the Battlecry copy, but it can get the summon a 2/2 copy of it, I believe. But there's a lot of interesting stuff with those dark gifts that we can do with that. And then outside of that, have some death rattle support. Probably one of the cards I'm most intrigued with by this set is Fractured Power. 2 mana, destroy one of your mana crystals, and 2 turns gain 2. So if you play it on 2, you go down to 0 out of 1 mana. Next turn you have 2 out of 2, and then the next turn you have 5 mana. So it's Warlock Ramp. Very interesting card. And to me, the Dark Gift stuff is where I'm most interested. I'll kind of leave some of the other cards to you guys because they hurt my head and I don't know what we're doing with them yet. But Warlock has an interesting set. It looks fun, and I'm not a Warlock player.
I see things like Archdruid of Thorns, which is Battlecry, gain the death rattle of the minions that die this turn, and having the tourist there that you play every death rattle twice. And I don't see anything particularly in the Warlock set that scares me right now, but that feels just like one of those things that someone's going to find a way to break, and we're just going to hate it. But it looks like a weird but fun set. I think that uh, to WorldEight's point, I think maybe the Ceaseless Expanse will come into play here again. You have the 10 mana 8/9, which is a Magan battle cry. The next card you play costs your opponent's health instead of their mana. So if somehow if you're playing something that's maybe not necessarily chewing through a bunch of cards or minions, maybe that's a quick, easy way to kill your opponent because it doesn't work like you can't. If it's your turn, you can't play a card that will bring your health below 0 as far as if it spends health. But this can kill your opponent, and they've explained that. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting set. Hungering Ancient seems okay. It eats a minion, and then when it dies, it gains stats. I think there's going to be a lot of weird shenanigans here. So I think this pilot. I think you're going to like this deck more than, or like this set more than I think you will. But time will tell on that. WorldEight, how excited are you for Warlock?
It's pretty interesting. It's definitely one of the more creative sets. It's very non-linear, and a lot of deck building space to explore here. Especially like Fractured Power, giving Warlock ramp. We've seen it before with Doomkin, and it was actually a lot better than most people actually tried it out to be. So like I feel like that actually might be kind of like a slower, like just one of those like staple cards like Geode was for a little bit in Warlock. Like we're just gonna see a lot of it and not think too much about it. Like New Heights, it's like, okay, all right, you got your ramp, great. I think Rodheart Dryad is also probably going to be a staple for any giant based deck. So we still have Seaside Giant and Location Warlock. Location Warlock didn't really get hit at all. Got a Kerrigan nerf, but that was pretty much it. So this Dryad can actually
loses Forge.
Oh, it loses Forge. That's true.
Forge
that's
is a pretty big hit.
Yeah, that is a big hit. But Dryad does tutor your Seaside Giant, so that's pretty nice. And I think the other thing with Wallow and just like having a tutor, like a really cheap tutor, is always interesting. Having Wallow in the deck. So what you want to do with Wallow is you want to roll enough Dark Gifts that you get Charge and Divine Shield and Wind Fury. Those are all Dark Gifts you can get, and then just enough stats on it. Because there's like I think there's like a +2/+2. There's like a +4. So if you roll all those, it can actually OTK, which is kind of hilarious. But you'd have to like get a lot of good rolls, and you might be rolling the dice like the whole game and not get the charge. And the horror might be okay-ish, actually. Like that's if you've got like 4 minions in your hand that discount 8. Like I'm always looking at tutor cards as being powerful and discount cards as being powerful. So the fact that horror can probably discount probably at least 3 cards, 4 cards right off the bat. And if you decide to pick cheap ones from your first few choices, you can dump kind of like a board with horror. So I'm not overlooking that one either. Archdruid of Thorns with battle card, get the death rattles of minions that died this turn. That one I don't. It seems really powerful, but I don't know what the deck is. I'm gonna kind of leave that to someone else, I think. But definitely a compelling card to look at.
Do we know if Wallow the Wretched will get that discount if it has a dark gift imbued upon it? Or not imbued is the wrong word here, but if because the Wallow the Wretched is while this is in your hand or gain a death dark gift, but it doesn't start with a dark gift as like a keyword. So do we know if Overgrown Horror will affect that?
I don't. No, it won't. I don't think so. Maybe it will. That's a good question.
I think it will, because my interpretation is whenever you get a card with a dark gift, Wallow also gets that enchantment of the dark gift, and Overgrown Horror is just looking for cards with dark gifts attached to them. That's my understanding. So I would expect it to, but I've been wrong about stuff like that before.
Yeah, I'm not usually wrong about things. So, all right. Well, WorldEight, you had mentioned that you don't think that the Death Knight set is going to be very played very much. So why do you?
Oh, I didn't say that it wasn't going to be played very much. This is going to see a ton of play. I just don't know if it's that good.
Okay,
There's
fair
a
enough.
difference.
Yeah, no, good point. Sorry. What do you think? Like, what is it? What do you like about the set? What don't you like about the set?
Well, I think giving, I think so. This is appealing to like slow Death Knight players. This is not, despite having the Mosquito in there and the Rune Blade in there, which are both kind of like aggressive strategies. The main theme here is leeches, where that's kind of siphoning off various parts of your opponent and giving health to yours. We still have Airlock Breach. So the Death Knights are just gonna get up to these really high health totals, and the question is, what do they do with that? That's not clear, other than maybe just you do an 8 Hands from Beyond and you just light them, like you just start tanking fatigue damage. I'm not really sure, but the leeches themselves will be pretty annoying, but are pretty easily removed, I think. So maybe I'm wrong. Like there's enough taunts to stick them behind. But they seem just like really easy to just like swipe away, which makes sense, like a leech. But just because something is distracting doesn't mean it's powerful.
What do you think, Pilot? You excited for Death Knight?
I'm less excited than I originally was, mainly because I forgot what runes were on older cards. I was very much looking forward to trying to put together that Eliza deck with some more tokeny stuff, and then I remembered she has a Frost rune, and some of these are double Unholy or double Blood, so makes it a little bit trickier to do. I think it's still something that I'm going to look into. It probably won't be good because that's what most of my first week experiments are. But like I said, with the mage package, I'm a sucker for token decks. I see a bunch of 0/2 leeches that you can give attack to if Eliza has died. So probably going to try to look at doing something like that. Probably won't be good enough, but that's okay. If we do get to the point where we have a blood unholy deck that's more aggressive, the weapon becomes bonkers. 2 mana 3/3 weapon is insane. If you're able to consistently get the battle cry to proc on that. So I think that's something to look at in the future. There's going to be a lot of people who misunderstand the dragon. I'm still not sure if I feel like in Coin Conceit it's been talked back and forth with, and I still don't know if anybody understands exactly how it works, or it's just like there's a lot of words on this card. So
okay, so I can jump in here because I was the one that was very confused by it, and several other people walked me through it. So basically,
I think I get it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's essentially trying to be Rattlegore. So when the dragon dies, it summons as many beetles as it can fill the board. And then at the start of your turn, you collect all those beetles. And if you've got 7 beetles, it makes a 7/7. If you've got 4 beetles, it makes a 4/4.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how big the beetles are. It just counts the number of beetles, and then it makes a new dragon. So it's actually pretty simple when you kind of wrap your head around it. So whatever the number of beetles are left, then that's how big your dragon is. And when it dies, it doesn't matter if the dragon's buffed or not. It's going to split into, it goes a 4/4 and it goes to, and it gets, I don't know, something gives it +1, like the mosquito. It doesn't summon 4 more beetles. It's just going to, the white stats matter, and it's going to summon those beetles, split up, and go back to, like, again, it's kind of like a Rattlegore type effect.
But I thought that when it reassembled, it would, if like your beetles were somehow 2/2s or 3/3s, that the Nathandria that reassembled would have keep all those buffs.
No, you just count the number of beetles. Don't worry about stats or anything. Just count. Just counting.
So it takes the white number, not the green number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much.
That's kind of disappointing, actually.
Yeah, it's still it's
but
super interesting.
I think otherwise it'd be pretty busted.
Mm-hmm.
So
the weapon. I think the weapon's interesting in that I think it's the first time that it actually is. It the first time we've had a card that says if you played a particularly rune card. I can't think of one off the top of my head. So that I think that's kind of an interesting mechanic. But also, I'm looking at the cards, and there's no frost runes. And once again, there's no triple runes. It also seems like Frost has been kind of on the back foot for a little while. Pilot, what are your thoughts on the runes here? Like, do you think we're never going to see a triple rune again? And why do you think we're not seeing Frost again, really?
Well, they said that they were going to back off on the triple runes some after the initial set. That way it kind of opened up more deck building opportunities, because originally it was just all triple pretty much across the board because the triple rune payoffs were so good. So they said that was kind of a design choice that they wanted to make. We did see in Perils, most of those were Frost Rune cards. I just have that pulled up because I was trying to look for Eliza again. So they've kind of gone through this cycle of, focusing on 1 to 2 runes at a time. That way, it's already hard enough sometimes if you're trying to support 2 archetypes with one set to do that, let alone if you're trying to support 3 to 4 because you have rune restrictions. I'm not too concerned with it personally, because we'll probably see more Frost here in the next set or the set after. And I think that Frost still has enough stuff. Most of the decks we have right now are Frost based or Rainbow based.
And what are your thoughts on the State of Runes there, Mr. 8?
Yeah, no, I agree with the, Perils was very frost focused, and we did see a triple rune card. It was Unholy, Unholy Blood, though, so I think they are trying to be a little bit more creative. The payoffs for the triple runes are still pretty strong. Like, I could envision a triple blood deck here, right? Where it's, it's just like super tanky. Or, you could use grave strength with the dragon. Like if you've got a board full of beetles, that could easily kill on 8. But I think it was, they had tied themselves really tight with the rune system, and they still want to explore that design space, so it's tricky. So you have cards like Seamstress or the new Rune Blade, which are kind of like, well, if you decide to care about the runes, then these cards will get benefits from it. And I think that's kind of the right approach here. Like Rune Blade on 2 is obviously super strong, super optimistic. I think the only card that would activate that is Morbid Swarm, which comes in this set. But it's much more likely that, you can play this after an Airlock Breach or something like that, right? Like, and still just like a solid 2 cost card. Or it's, it's still a fine weapon, with either of the abilities available. So the flexibility is good. I do want to make a quick note though that, Ursoc is one of the old gods that's actually pretty easy to cheat out, because of the Exarch in Great Dark Beyond, which you can tutor with the other Draenei that like tutors Draenei. So it wouldn't be too hard to like curator into Ursoc, and at that point have the Exarch online that you could spend 9 corpses to get it down on 6, right? And this on 6 is pretty strong. Maybe, I don't know. It is one of those like big cards that is actually cheat outable. So I don't know if that's a deck, but I do think we'll see a lot of Blood Death Knights or, double Blood Death Knights. And it's going to be very annoying because it's not clear how they win the game.
I have one more card that I'd like to chime in with that I found very interesting because it kind of explores a space they haven't done with the Unholy yet, and that's Corpse Flower. If after your opponent summons a minion, spend 2 corpses to deal 3 damage to it. It's a 3-mana 0/5. A lot of the times when we were playing the Unholy decks before, we had more corpses than what we knew what to do with. And this becomes a very interesting card if that type of tokeny deck comes back, because we only have a handful of cards, especially now, that really want to spend a lot of corpses. So I feel like those types of decks always, especially once you get to the mid game, you've got, 10 extra corpses that you're just not doing anything with. That this could be a very interesting card to toss in, and then you're really controlling the board as you're summoning all these tokens.
I mean, I would agree, except that we have Malignant Horror in core now, and that's a very quick way to spend corpses. So, especially if you're running double Unholy, like you're happy to make that board of horrors.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Scratch that.
Well, that sounds annoying, like WorldEight said. And since we are talking about annoying things, Pilot, can you bring us into Priest? What I want to know is what you think of the set and how happy do you think WorldEight's going to be? I'm sorry, I mean Wicked.
WorldEight? Wrong W.
Wrong W.
Yeah. So I'm just getting a chance to look at these because I was busy most of the day and they were revealed today. We were all kind of expecting a lot with the Priest Imbue because they were saving it for last and added a whole extra day beforehand, with the reveals. And they were like, what is this? We knew that Raza was being reworked specifically because of the Imbue. And there's a lot of control stuff here. So all the people who have been waiting for a control priest to come back, and have stuff to do with that, definitely, are probably going to be pretty happy with this set. So our priest imbue is Blessing of the Moon. Choose a priest minion or priest spell to add to your hand. It costs 1 less, but is temporary. remember temporary is the discards at the end of turn. You the way that it was explained earlier is it's not like you're choose minion, choose spell, and then you discover from that it pops up two choices, one's a minion, one's a spell, and you pick one of them. The cost reduction is what upgrades with your imbues. So it's your hero power becomes a value engine, which is why Raza is changing, because we skipped over it with the buffs and nerfs, but they reworked Raza the Resealed, so that your hero power used to refresh whenever you play a card. Now it is shuffle 5 random friendly minions that died this game into your deck. They cost 0, because if you're getting free stuff from the imbue hero power, then you just go infinite with that, and that seems like something that they didn't want. So imbue stuff is pretty typical from what we've seen from the other classes. And then on top of that, they're doing a lot of spell stuff, where you're being encouraged to play spells, and things are upgrading when you cast spells. So we have a 5 mana summon 2 random 3-cost minions, cast 3 spells to summon 6 costs instead. A 3 mana deal 6 damage to a minion, cast 3 to gain lifesteal. So some spell things, a card that does some damage if you're holding expensive spells, all kind of leading up to Tyrande, which is their other legendary. The next 3 spells you play cast twice. So a lot of spell-based things, with definitely leaning more towards a controlling route, which makes sense because aggro priest has been the more common thing in Dragon Priest. So definitely pushing that way. A couple other things here. We've got an elusive dragon and some other kind of one-off cards, but those are kind of the main focuses of the set.
What do you think, WorldEight? Excited?
Sure. I mean, it's not really my type of priest, the controller priest. They seem fine. I think, in terms of power level, Tyrande is probably pretty good, but it's nowhere near as close as like Amanthul. Moonwall seems pretty solid, but really expensive. I think the imbuing, the question is with a lot of the imbues is like, when do you finally click the button? And I think roughly like around somewhere like, I don't know, you've imbued 6 times, right? Something like that. And it's a lot of deck slots to commit to imbuing. Like, I don't think the 2 priest imbue cards are really that great. Like the bird is pretty cool, but it's so easy to remove with 1 health. And then the priestess giving like a wave of apathy kind of effect is okay-ish again, but if it's not worth running on its own, because the other main one, right, is a 2 mana 2/3. You're gonna be really behind on tempo. And so you're gonna spend most of the game catching up. And so your payoff is pretty good, because you're gonna be discovering something, and maybe you'll get like a light shower elemental for free. But it's pretty random. Like, I don't know if Casino Priest is really gonna vibe with the Control Priest group. But we did have that one card, and I'm kicking myself because I'm usually pretty good about remembering cards and what they do. But there was one that gave a temporary shadow spell that rotated every turn. Or is it discover? It gave you a spell that discovered a shadow spell, I think. And Pilot looks like he knows. Like, I'm talking about.
I can't think of what it is. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it was like 3 mana, discover a shadow spell, and so that was like an infinite value engine, and that was like, it was decent. This imbue is a lot better. But from what I understand from my control priest friends, there's always this tension of like, what do you spend your board, like your deck slots on? Like, what kind of removal? And every slot's kind of valuable. And this imbuing is, you're spending a lot of slots on things that aren't great. So I'm not entirely sold on this set. I definitely don't know if it was worth the hype for last, even though I like the dragon, but we saw the dragon early. So I'm going to just kind of like say, this is fine. Uh, and yeah, I mean, Ritual of the New Moon actually might make it into Zarimi. I don't know how hard it's going to be to get that online in Curve, but I was trying to build Zarimi and I was like, well, there's like Orbital in here, there's Scale Replica, maybe we're running Mixologist, maybe this will actually be online somewhat reliably. But probably not. These conditional cards are usually like you pull it off the top and then it sits there for 3 turns and you're like, why did I play this card? So I definitely don't think it was like that much of a banger to save for last. We'll see though. My other big problem is with Tyrande is like it's a super powerful effect and it's super cool, but you are spending a turn playing a 5/7. That doesn't do anything on that turn probably because unless you have like loads of mana already, like what's your really impactful spell that turn like you want to cast twice? Probably not much. So yeah, I'm not really sold on the preset to be honest. I think it's okay.
I mean, I think the dream there is that you get Tyrande off the hero power when it with a high reduction, right, or something, and then you can kind of take
Right.
advantage of it. So, um, I'm not sold on it either. Like, I hope it's okay enough where it's played, but I know whenever Control Priest is dominant in a meta, I'm usually sad. So, um, we'll see. The cards look fun and interesting, and I'm not particularly scared of it at this point. But it's not something I want to play a lot of. Something I will play a lot of is Paladin, probably. So Paladin's imbued class, and it has imbued hero power, Blessing of the Dragon. Shuffle 2 Emerald portals into your deck. Your portal summons 1-cost dragons. So the next it'll 2-cost dragons, 3-cost dragons, and if you already have these portals in your deck, then whenever you use your hero power, it will shuffle the new imbued or so whatever your imbued value is, the portals will summon that cost dragon. So the one cost dragons will increase even if they're in your deck. Um, it seems fairly straightforward. I think it's going to be probably moderately linear, but I think it's still going to be pretty fun. Because I mean, you have kind of a nice little curve from like um, Edges of Light, and you get into Gold Petal Drake, which is Battle Cry and Death Rattle to imbue your hero power. Um, I think we're gonna have fun with this one. I like the Ursol. I think it's an interesting card. So this is your um 8 mana 9/7 legendary. It's a beast. Cast the highest cost spell from your hand as an aura, and that lasts 3 turns. And what that does is at the end of your turn, it will cast that spell again, which is, I think, the only reason why you'd want to play Renewing Flames, which is a 7 mana lifesteal, deal 5 damage to the lowest health enemy twice. Although, as WorldEight mentioned before, that feels pretty decent alongside of um, the Ceaseless Expanse. So, um, if you get Ursol down and you have Renewing Flames, and then the next turn you can play the other one and the Ceaseless, I mean, I think there's potential there for some shenanigans. The other legendary, Torathian Breaking, is a 5 mana, 3/4 Divine Shield taunt. Your Divine Shields take 3 hits to break. It has taunt, so it's not like you're going to be able to hide it and protect it. Once it dies, that effect goes away. So I think it's a really good card, but I don't think it's as game breaking as some people think it was right off the top. Um, but I think it's gonna be fun. I'm moderately excited for Paladin because I think we're doing some different things here, and I think Dragon Paladin's gonna be fun. The one thing I found interesting, I think I said that 3 times. One thing I found interesting is there's no choose one card really for Paladin because every class was supposed to get a choose one card. They do have close to a choose one card because they have a 2 mana Mark of Ursol, which is choose a minion. If it's an enemy, set its stats to 1/1. If it's friendly, set its stats to 3/3 instead. So I'm thinking that's kind of what their choose one it is, but I don't think it would be discovered by the choose one minion in Druid. The one that
There's a minion.
discovers there's a minion where
There's a choose one minion. Lightmender. 4 mana 3/3. Taunt, choose one. +3 attack and divine shield or +3 health and lifesteal. It's a
I
minion
completely
instead of a
missed.
spell.
I completely missed that. So okay, never mind. Everything I just said for the last 3 minutes, ignore. Which you probably did anyway. But Pilot, what do you think? What do you think about Paladin? Think I'm gonna like the set? Are you gonna like the set? What are we doing?
Yeah, I like the look of the imbue stuff, even if it's just as an extra value and an extra minion here and there. I think that there's been enough decks over the past few years that have proven that that is good enough, to where if you can get an extra minion that you're not paying for that turn, it's typically worth it. We do have the Dream Warden that is meant to kind of cheat and draw some of those out, to where it's taunt, battle cry. If there's a card in your deck that didn't start there, draw it and gain +2/+2. So if you have used your imbue hero power, then that is a 4 mana 5/6 now, and whatever cost of dragon you're on, which seems solid. Jumping to the aura stuff, yeah, renewing flames. I think even if we have reliable ways to either clear the board or manipulate where this is going, that card is bonkers. If that goes face, that's a 7 mana Pyroblast. And I think that we play a 7 mana Pyroblast. If we have the opportunity, I would at least. So that card is going to be nuts. Ursol is definitely meant to go with it because we're rotating a lot of the other possible high cost spells that we'd be looking at. Next ones that we kind of have are either already auras, like Crafter's Aura or Sea Shanty, which, if you haven't discounted it, that would be the highest cost, and 3/5/5s every turn isn't the worst thing. So it's definitely something that doesn't impact the board. So if you're willing to do that on turn 8 and hope that they stick is another question. But 3 turns in a row of here's 5/5s, deal with them, could be good enough, especially in a 4-set meta. Those auras, because this came up a few times, would be affected by Cardboard Golem, which, if you forgot about that card because it hasn't seen any play, is from Whizbang. 4 mana 4/4, increase the duration of your auras in hand, deck, and battlefield by 1. That does not increase it before Ursol plays it, because it's not an aura in your hand, deck, or battlefield yet. It's becoming an aura when Ursol plays it, but you could play that in order to increase the duration of it once it is an aura. So that is something that people will probably look at as an option, especially if you're able to get one of these high impact spells on it.
And actually, if you have Renewing Flames and you have Ursol play it, that's 20 damage that turn because it casts it and then it casts it at the end of your turn. And it's basically like a Reno if because that would like heal you for 20. So
it only happens once that turn by my understanding, right?
No, because Battle Cry casts the highest cost spell from your hand as an aura that lasts 3 turns. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
because aura casts at the end of the turn. It doesn't cast it and then make it an aura. That'd be a little much. We're lowering the power level. We talked about that.
Yeah. Fair. Okay, so I misread that. That would have been fun. WorldEight, are you excited for Paladin?
Yeah, I think Paladin's actually, like, I saw it and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, all these cards look really solid. My challenge with the imbue is, at what point do we click the button? Like, we have to at some point imbue and then click the button. So unless we go like Aegis, click the button, Gold Petal, and then Dream Warden, at some point we have to hero power, right? Like, we don't have Tour Guide, and we do have to get those cards into our deck. And then Dream Warden and Dragon Scale both pull those cards, but then I kind of wonder, why don't we just run Insidious? like the eruptions are fine also to pull. um I think what has my interest much more is the Maul, the 4 mana 4/2. After your hero attacks, draw your highest cost card. Again, I'm always very interested in tutoring effects, where you can build a deck around it. So the clear line is to Maul into Ursol, and at that point you've also drawn your Renewing Flames. Those are your 2 highest cost cards. And so if you're building an aggressive deck, this is kind of like slamming Countess on 8. The other way to build the deck, though, is you maul into something like Linessa, or you maul into like Insidious into Linessa, something like that, where you're specifically building the deck to do something really targeted. I also built a deck that used maul, and then the top end was 2 Menagerie Jugs. Right, like that's super powerful too, because you have this really aggressive low end, and then you go 4 slam for. You have 4 on 4. You hit for 4, and then on 5 you're hitting for 4. Plus you have 9 charge damage. I think that has a lot of potential, because you also have like Crusader's Aura for all your little token guys, and you still run some sticky stuff like Mermy, cards like that. So I'm actually pretty excited for that. It's a kind of a boring aggro deck, but I think Maul is particularly interesting to me because, again, it tutors. Toreth, I think it's good. I think it's going to be super annoying with Brew, and Righteous Protector, especially because you do have to hit it a whole bunch of times. Most decks don't have a lot of single target removal anymore. So it's, I don't know. I'm really excited for Maul. I think Ursol is really cool. And I think we're going to see a lot of dragon decks. But my challenge is when do we click the button and actually shuffle some of these portals in?
It is a good point, and it is. I'm sure we'll figure it out. And also, Sing Along Buddy's still in the meta, right? So that probably finds its way into a deck like this, if you can make it work. So it looks fun. So you guys have any? So now that we've seen all the sets, any thoughts or predictions on what's going to be too good, or about what's going to come out on top here, or what you're excited about? What class are you guys most excited for, or least excited for, or whatever your thoughts are right now? Pat, why don't we start with you?
Think for like archetypes that I'm most excited for, it's probably the Bounce Rogue package in that deck. So seems like a very fun, new twist on that, with them not just focusing on what are the strongest battle cries we play, but now these cards want you to play cards of the same name over and over again, or you get the effect when it comes back to the hand. So interested in that. I'm really interested to see where Imbue falls, because there's a few of them. It's not a perfect comparison, but a couple of them remind me of similar to like the Galakron hero powers. So the priest one especially, Galakron priest, the hero power is just a value engine, and that's what this one is also. And it's kind of seeing, a lot of those saw very competitive play for quite a while. I guess they had a lot of other things that went with them, especially Rogue, when it was drawing 4 cards that cost 0, and you stacked your deck and then drew everything expensive for 0. As someone who used it to get Legend for the first time, totally understand it's a very, very different scenario. But I do think that there's some comparisons that can be drawn there, to where, by itself the hero power might not be overly insane, but is it enough of that constant engine in some of these cases, like Paladin, like Priest, to be able to create those mid to late game decks that are built around that? And I don't have the answer yet, because it's really hard to tell until we see how it shapes up with these other late game decks that are getting nerf that we talked about. Currently, they wouldn't stand a chance against the Terran decks. It's not even close. But are those going to be weak enough now that these have a chance to at least compete with them? We'll see.
WorldEight?
I would say just generally, I feel like the power level of the set's pretty low. And I know that we went into this with that expectation from Great Dark Beyond. They said, well, this is kind of the power level that we wanted. And then they had to buff a whole bunch of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they buffed a lot from this set. There are some cards that I find particularly interesting. I think the like we were just talking about the Maul. I think the Maul is really cool. It's a tutoring card. And Ursol itself is very, very interesting. I agree with Pilot. I like the bounce rogue stuff. If any of the archetypes make it out in the first week or two, I think it's probably going to be that, or something based around the old god turtle, because you could still chemical spill into the turtle and pretty easily tutor it. So that seems really annoying, and we're going to see a lot of like the Blood Death Knight. But in terms of what I'm interested in, the tempo rogue, whatever you want to call it, stuff, that seems like a deck I would play. I'm pretty hesitant about all of the imbue stuff. I was like, oh, this is all really cool. Again, until like I was like, oh, at some point I do have to click the hero power, or none of this works. And a lot of the decks, like, you want to start clicking it like 2-3 times a turn on like turn 7, 8, 9. And so it better win you the game at that point. And even for like druid summoning, like let's say I click on 6 and I get it like a 6/6 minion. Like, is that really playing all these super low tempo cards early on to do? I don't know. I don't think it really is in general. But some other standout cards that are kind of interesting to me: Defiled Spear and Demon Hunter basically gives you like a Wind Fury type thing. That could be really interesting. We still have a whole bunch of attack buff stuff. The one legendary that I think is really cool is Brawl Bear Mantle in Hunter, where you get a cast a spell, get an animal companion. That just seems fun. like a wishing well rogue. I don't know how that'll be good. And then there's some other small ones like I really was excited for all the Enraged stuff. It seems a little clunky. Unfortunately, kind of like the Draenei were in Great Dark Beyond. Like, I could see the vision, but it's not. I don't know if it's gonna flow well. But maybe it'll be really good. I never played during like Dragon Warrior times, but I can see like the throwback there. So I wouldn't be too surprised if a lot of these decks are gonna kind of whiff after the first week or so. But that's pretty typical of an expansion. But yeah, I think we're gonna need a lot of buffs to these cards. I think Malorn to 7 is probably one of the first ones we'll see, to be honest, as like a payoff. But I don't know, maybe they're very happy with this power level and we'll see nerfs instead.
I'm obviously looking forward to Paladin. We talked about that. I think I'm also looking forward to Hunter. I like some of the cards that you want to imbue, and then like you get the Verdant Dream Saber, that battle cry. It's a 5-mana 4/7 battle cry. If this costs 3 or less, attack 2 random enemy minions. So that's potentially, because it's going to get bigger and it's going to hopefully do a little clearing stay on the board. I'm really hoping I'm wrong and somebody finds something to do with Shepherd's Crook, which is the 3-mana 3/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, summon a 3/3 sheep that's dormant for 2 turns. I think that's weird, but I hope someone figures something out with it. But I think it's going to be fun. I I agree, the power level is down. That's what they said they were going to do. But the flavor is fine. I kind of like some classes I'm confused about. I'm not sure if I'm happy with Death Knight. I'm not sure if I'm happy with Warrior. But overall, I think the set looks fun. I'm looking forward to it, and Yeah. So, listeners, we like talking to you. We hope you enjoy, hearing us. If you're listening to us, you must enjoy it somewhat. Leave us a review, hopefully 5 stars, but whatever you feel we deserve. It helps others find the show and helps us grow. So that way, when we have guests on like WorldEight, more people get to hear him, and it amplifies the time. It amplifies the effect of the time we get from him to get to more people, and we like that. Um, WorldEight, where can people find you out there on social media?
Best way to reach me is on Discord, WorldEight. There's a very weird tournament coming up. A lot of people have already messaged me like, what do I build for this tournament? Because it's going to be in this very strange meta. So Discord is the best way. And then otherwise, I'm trying to stream a little bit more. I've been doing a lot of the Coin Conceit listener series, streaming. Gonna keep doing that until that's over, probably in the next week or two. And then I'll be on, so that's WorldEight_HS, and then obviously be on the theory crafting stream tomorrow. So, but otherwise, yeah, same as usual.
Pilot, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can also mainly find me on Discord, Pilot712, PYLET. I'm also on Twitter, but don't check that nearly as often at the same handle. So Discord's best spot to reach me.
And you can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Tito Santana HS. You can find me also on YouTube and TikTok and other places. Right now, I'm doing a giveaway on Twitter. So if you just look me up at Tito Santana HS and follow along with what to do, you could win a standard bundle for Emerald Dream, courtesy of Blizzard Entertainment. I thought I was going to try to edit this. I had enough energy going into this, but I'm starting to fall asleep. It's getting late, so I don't think I'm going to get this out before Theory Crafting. This may not come out till Saturday. Apologize for that, but hopefully you did stop by and caught us and had a good time. Yeah. Pilot, you got anybody to shout out this week or anything you want to promote?
Yeah, a couple shout outs. First, want to shout out some of my students. They were awesome. I get to teach and make music with some great kids, and they could see how disappointed I was after we didn't perform as well as we wanted to last weekend. A couple of them sent some very kind messages to me afterwards, making sure that I wasn't being too hard on myself and doing the same thing I was telling them to do. So that was awesome. It's always nice as a teacher, that you have an impact, but having those reminders sometimes is always nice. And then on the other end of the spectrum, a shout out to Donkey, who committed to the bit in Tito's stream the other night, to where started just doing an arrow pointing up at everything that I was saying throughout the stream, and eventually made it so that his bot would add the arrow every time I type something. So gave me a nice laugh on a night that I really needed it. So shout out to them.
Yeah, it was basically like, so he was agreeing with everything Pilot would say, like, hey, Tito, that was the dumb play. And it was like, agreeing. WorldEight, you got anything like to promote this week or shout outs?
Well, I mean, I'll kind of a promotion / shout out to you, Tito, for doing the theory crafting. I actually reached out to try and do it, and I guess I'm not good enough to theory craft. So it's awesome that you still got to do that. And I'm happy to be on part of that tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good time. I'm going to shout out, obviously, Blizzard for giving me the opportunity and the bundles and everything. It's wonderful to be seen. And especially, as always, thank out to Ridiculous Hat, who works really, really hard. Probably harder than we assume he works really hard. I'm sure he works even harder than we think he does. So thank you, Hat, for everything, and thank you to everyone who probably showed up to the Theory Crafting stream, because again, I don't think I'm going to get this out in time. But also, yeah, thank you to anyone that's supported us at all, because we appreciate you and it helps a lot. But anyway, guys, I think we're toast. We'll see ya.
All right, see ya. Take care.
See ya.
It's like two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.